Welcome back. This is segment 2, being filmed on Tuesday, January the 26th, 2016. Our guest in this segment is Brian Gilbert. We're going to be talking about a very important issue, sewage treatment. I heard Lisa Helps, who's the chair of the sewage committee, say on the radio today that, I think I heard her say that they were hoping to make final decisions, fairly final decisions, on February 24th. So that's a month away, less than a month away. And Brian, I think what you're saying is that there's a much cheaper option that somehow is not on the table yet, and never will be on the table.
If the way it's going. Anyways, it's nice to be back with you, Jack. It's been a while. Yes, it's getting really energized again with this topic. This 24th decision is a decision to make a final plan of how they're going to do sewage treatment. And they haven't even got all the option sets that they'd like to consider on the table. So on
February 24th, a sort of final decision is going to be made?
They're going to make a final decision. They're running to this deadline that's artificial, in my opinion. But if that day is when they're going to have to come up with a final decision, and then they go to the provincial ministry to get approval of the amended plan. They have to get that done to meet their deadline of the end of March.
But it's not a real deadline.
It's not a real deadline. This $84 million that they're trying to get the funding for is for anaerobic digestion, which is a very expensive technology. It's the technology to deal with the stuff left over after you separate the water from the solids. Okay? There's problems with anaerobic digestion, as we've talked about before. It creates biosolids, which contain all the toxins that went into the sewage in the first place. They're concentrated. We do not allow land application of biosolids in the CRD because they're toxic. So it's hypocritical of us to think of doing them somewhere else. So there's nothing left to do with those biosolids than landfill them. Anaerobic digestion is really expensive. The technology that's innovative, advanced gasification, is cheap compared to it. We were talking tens of millions of dollars versus hundreds of millions. Okay? And it completely destroys the toxins, and it generates revenue by generating energy. So
it almost sounds too good to be true.
It does, doesn't it?
And maybe it is, but at least we should be looking at it.
Really looking at it. And the CRD has done everything they can to not look at that.
Yes.
The staff have been directing this technical oversight panel to restrict their research to this funding cycle that they're trying to drive to, which restricts them to basically supporting anaerobic digestion or something else that will fit that funding.
What do you mean? Oh, you mean...
The funding is a P3 funding, and it was tied to anaerobic digestion.
So this is, I mean, we are talking about a multi-billion-dollar decision.
Correct.
It's going, I mean, there's only 350,000 people living here. We're talking about $2 billion
yes.
to build and then maintain this thing over a lifespan.
And this won't go on your tax bill. I think this will end up on your utility bill. So you have to pay it. There's no grants. People on low income are going to be really strapped trying to pay for this as it goes on forever.
Do you have any idea what the cost per household will be?
Oh, it's in the multiple hundreds. It ranges, depending on the municipality, from 3 to 5, maybe even higher. It depends on which option you pick. Now, what's missing is what we've heard is called the $250 million option. A world-leading vendor in wastewater technology came to the CRD last spring and said we could do the whole region for $250 million capital cost. Not only that, because we are using advanced gasification, net zero long-term operating costs. It will pay for itself.
So
it almost sounds too good to be true.
The possibility of $250 million instead of over $1 billion.
Right.
And then no net operating costs
right.
compared to $1 billion or more.
Well, ongoing. It's
costs.
20 to 30 million operating costs and another 20 million in debt for the first 40 years.
For the CRD's plan.
For the CRD.
So is this potential plan being looked at? It seems to be, we're not hearing about it.
No, we haven't heard about it. They heard about it for an hour and a half at the committee meeting, June 9th. Since then, they've done nothing. On June 12th, they finally brought them back in, this vendor back in, to visit with TOP. This is the day before they're deciding to go to public with these other option sets. So, can you tell me why they took so long to actually bring this vendor back in? Why did they even need to bring the vendor back in? Apparently they hired experts in this technology. How come they couldn't look at what they presented back in June and say, okay, I understand the principles of it. I can explain the principles of it, and I'm not an engineer. I've just been following it. It's not that difficult. Basically, using tertiary okay. When we're treating sewage, there's different levels of treatment. The proposals on the table right now are called secondary treatment.
Which is does nothing for the environment in the end.
Well, not as much as we'd like. It still lets pollutants back into the water.
And it puts the rest of them on the land. Where's
That's right.
the saving?
So,
or burns them.
When you do tertiary, you go to a higher level, and the water's reclaimed. It's clean. You can use it. You can put it out in lakes, streams, parklands. It can be touched by humans. That's called greater exposure. That's achievable. Now you don't need outfalls. Now you don't need centralized plants. You save on conveyance. Huge amounts. Gasification is cheaper compared to anaerobic. Save huge amounts again. So yes, it costs a little bit more to do tertiary, but you save on all those other things. So you get 250 million, maybe it's 3, maybe it's 400 million. It's still way cheaper than the old plan of 800, way cheaper than the $1 billion on the table right now.
So we face, I mean, as far as I can see, a real financial catastrophe. I mean, if we have to start paying, you know, we're $2 billion over a 30-year life cycle, let's say.
Yes.
Instead of 250 million or 500 million, that does a better job.
Yes.
Well, why are we doing this? What? And yet it's like unstoppable. It just moves ahead. What's wrong with it?
Unbelievable. It just continues. Staff direction it seems to be also at play here. I was at this technical oversight panel meetings, and I was listening to staff come in and give them directions on what they should be considering. This body is supposed to be independent.
But the staff tells them what to do. Yeah, it's so
well, they went along with
often
what the
case.
staff said.
That's
right.
it. They always go. You know, really, the public should really sometimes shine a strong light on senior staff people and just see what they're doing. I mean, just see what they're doing. And if it's good, great.
I will give credit to the public. This is a complicated topic to follow, and when staff want to go about this, they can make it look very complicated and spin the information in ways that's hard for people to tease apart and focus in on what's actually going on. So it's difficult for the general public. I will acknowledge that for people. But this is a very important one to get up to speed on. This next month, they'll make a decision. If that's approved, the public cannot stop it. It's unstoppable after that. And that's a real concern, just like what happened to McLaughlin. Once that plan was approved, there was nothing that was going to stop that happening, and nothing could stop it. Esquimalt had to zone that for sewage. That's what Nils Jensen is using for his motion this Wednesday. That land is actually zoned for sewage. See, the province would have come in and imposed sewage on Esquimalt, on McLaughlin. There's nothing that anyone can do. The only reason they couldn't go forward is because it was a variance on that. They needed to push it out to the full, right?
And Esquimalt had control of that.
They took
so
control
we were
of the
saved
agenda.
by a technicality. And now Nils Jensen is pushing to
go back to McLaughlin.
There. Do you know why?
Well, this is the original plan, and he's been a proponent of the original plan, as many others have been, and that's their goal, is to get us back to
me, the original plan is to spend like $1 billion to build the thing for zero environmental gain. I mean, I think I can say
very
that.
Questionable, yes.
So I don't know why Nils Jensen is doing this, but maybe we'll find out.
As I said, it's to go back to that old plan.
And maybe he's right. Who knows? Maybe he's right. Richard Atwell today made some comments about Saanich maybe going it alone. Can you?
Well, that was in his annual speech, just recapping where he sees Saanich is going, where he wishes to take leadership in that area. He's not saying they should consider it. And Richard's at the table. He's trying to make the whole regional thing work. But if they come back with an option like Rock Bay, $1 billion, huge costs, Saanich has to pay for that. The land purchase is $70 million in that project. $70 million. And Saanich is going to have to pay for that. And so is Oak Bay and
So is
everyone
Victoria.
else. And so, Victoria. So that's a lot of cost.
So what he's saying is, if you're going to do this, then maybe Saanich will do something smarter at lower cost for
he should do
ourselves.
due diligence. Saanich should do due diligence just to say,
all.
why not look at it our own and see if there's a cost savings. I mean, Colwood and Langford are going that route. They're doing their own due diligence and doing their own self-funded study to see if they can come up with something that's lower cost and better for the environment.
And what's their process like?
Well, it's a staff-led process. Unfortunately, it's a staff that is looking at the environmental benefits and the cost benefits.
Are they doing what you would call a fair and reasonable and honest job of looking at all points of view?
It certainly has the yes in a lot of ways, because they're looking at tertiary. They're taking advantage of tertiary. It's a cost savings when you do it right. So they're looking to discharge to the aquifer and recharge with reclaimed water, the aquifer. So now there's no outfall. That saves a huge amount of money.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to start putting that water back. This is
It's clean. It's drinkable, although we have the ick factor, we won't drink it.
Yeah.
But it is definitely exposed. And this is how you also.
We're going to have to stop. We're out of time.
We're out of time. 12 minutes.
So much.
Oh, darn.
Thank you so much. I mean, this is such an important issue. People have got to keep an eye on it. It's moving ahead. Less than a month now. Thanks for watching this segment
Thank you
of
very
Citizens
much.
Forum.